Hello everyone, reporting today for Fun Robotics Network, I'm Abhas, and with me here is Team 10084, Calamari from Ohio. They've been absolutely fantastic this season. Coming into the Houston World Championship, they were undefeated, I believe 70-0 throughout all of their matches throughout DECODE. Just insane. They're doing absolutely fantastic in their division so far. They have an almost entirely 3D printed robot, super fast intake, really great shooting, all that and more coming up on this Behind the Box. All right, guys, so first thing we have to talk about has to be the 3D printing. I mean, it's really incredible. You know, teams use it a lot, but no one uses it quite as much as you do. Walk me through exactly how much 3D printed components you have on this robot, first of all.
So in terms of 3D printing components on the robot, it's essentially any structural component that is a flat plate or 2D object like that that's just really easy to print out and it aligns with the layer orientations. So anything from our drivetrain panels like this, or our transfer panels, and everything up to even the belts that we have. We've used 3D printed belts because it gives us the ability to quickly iterate upon them and change gear ratios and things that we need.
Before we get to our next segment, we'd like to thank the following. DECODE Robotics is inspiring teams to build better robots with their new array of FTC team options. Check out their updated bevel gears and Maverick hex shaft motors, Planetary gearbox options, and 6mm hex components and shafts for extreme power transmission. Go to studecode.com/robots to learn more and apply for discounts.
Awesome. Yeah, you know, obviously it would be unwise to print these all with the same material. So how many different materials are you guys using and how do you decide that?
So we've used 5 different main materials this season. That ranges from PLA, which is a prototyping filament. It's also good for smooth mechanical mechanisms such as gears. We use PLACF for rigid components that we don't want to creep, such as our launcher to keep high tension. We use PET GCF on things like our drivetrain and transfer. They'll take high impacts while also still needing a little bit of stiffness to just maintain rigidity within the robot. We use TPU for high impacts on the exterior of our robot, such as our exterior panels or our bumpers on the front. And finally, we use TPU Air, which is a foaming filament that actually just naturally has high grip right off the build plate. So we use that for our transfer wheels as well as our counterspin roller.
Wow, that is so fascinating. As far as like print settings go, I mean, you guys must have 3D printed more hours than any other team this season. Do you have any like recommendations for teams, like as far as like infills or layer lines or anything that's just like, you have to do this, it's gonna help so much?
Something that I would say with 3D printing that is just really essential to do is pocketing. The hexagon pocketing that we have not only increases the strength by adding more walls per part, but it also makes wire management extremely easy. For instance, here we have wires running through the hexagons, and it also has an added perk of if you need to add mechanisms later on, you can actually just tie directly into the hexagons. We have an example of that with our front brake right here. The mount is directly put into the hexagons and then held on with existing screws with no modifications to the original part.
For sure. As far as like infill goes and stuff like that, are you guys just using like normal grid infill, gyroidal infill? I saw those parts over there. What's going on there?
So cubic is scientifically tested by a few different sources as the best 3D printing filament, just because of the layer lines. Gyroidal is technically the highest strength per weight, but cubic actually ties the layers together a little bit better. So using cubic as well as about 3 to 4 walls, depending on the strength of the part you need, is what we usually go with.
Awesome. And last question about the printers. Are these all done on the same printer? What type of printers are you guys using for all of this?
We have a range of Bamboo Lab printers. So for advanced materials, we'd go with the H2D. It's got nice dual extruders for things like support material, things like that, and a pretty large build plate size, as well as the direct-driven extruder. For just normal prototyping parts, quick iteration would be the X1C. And if we need anything super high surface finish, we do the P2S.
Awesome, yeah. And how many kilograms of filament have you guys gone through this year?
I'd say between prototyping and our first bot, it's got to be at least 20 kilograms, if not more. We have a specific number on our YouTube channel of actually feet of filament we've used, which is a pretty high number. I believe, yeah, it's 15,000? Yeah, 15,000 feet of filament.
That's awesome.
Before we get to our next segment, we'd like to thank the following. Kettering University's cutting-edge programs in their experiential co-op model seamlessly blend the professional and academic worlds, offering hands-on, feature-focused learning that empowers students to pursue new ideas and inspires other institutions to follow their lead. Don't just be ahead of the curve, create the curve. Get more information at kettering.edu/first.
let's jump right into this intake over here. You guys have a very open robot. You can see pretty much everything. I love that. Walk me through exactly what's going on with these different rollers and why you decided on different ones in different places.
So with the surgical tubing, since it's circular, it gives it the ability to vector in the artifacts just naturally by the use of the wedges right there. So even if we have 3 in a line, we can still consistently pull them in due to just the randomness of the surgical tubing being in different positions.
Yeah, let's take a look at just like one like triple wide intake cycle and see how that vectoring works. If you guys can just collect that, and we'll see what that looks like over there, you know, as you guys drive into it. That's really awesome. Let's take one level up over here to this transfer. What are you using here, and why did you decide that?
So that's the same special foaming Soritech Air TPU. So the reason those internal transfer sections are those little flapper wheels, as we call them, is because they don't necessarily need to grip the artifacts a lot. And actually, the more they slip, the better, because it keeps our motor from completely stalling while we've intaken those artifacts.
Awesome.
And then oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and then you guys have another one over here.
That would be our top stage of our transfer. That's a more high contact, high compression wheel, just because we need that extra little bit of grip to push the artifacts consistently up into the launcher.
For sure, that makes a ton of sense. Now, talking also about the uptake blocker you guys have over here, how are you making sure that artifacts don't go into the shooter when you don't want them to?
So that blocker actually has an over-center linkage on it, as well as being perpendicular to the motion of the artifacts. So the reason that's really helpful is we're actually able to use a very small, very light Axon microserver on there, while still not putting it under an incredible amount of strain, just because it's perpendicular to the motion of the artifacts.
Wow, yeah, that's super clever. It's so smooth as well. Talking about motors on this intake, you know, you mentioned you just have the micro for the uptake, but is it just single motor intake, and if so, why?
So the entire intake is one motor, as you said, and the reason for that is we actually originally started with a servo turret to conserve 2 motors for, say, another extra intake motor or a climb. But after messing around with those and noticing that some of the programming could be difficult, as well as just them having a net lower amount of power, we opted for a motor just because of the high torque and the simplicity of it.
I see. And talking about your belts here, so are you printing all of these on a 0.4 nozzle, or are you going down to a 0.2 nozzle for these belts and pulleys and these like finer components?
So all of the HDD3 belts are actually printed with 0.4 nozzle, just standard. Something that's very, very important with them that I would suggest is making sure random seam is turned on. If you have an aligned seam down the belt, it makes them extremely easy to just split in that location. And for our smaller belts, such as the GT2 up here, that was actually printed with a 0.2 millimeter nozzle, just because it has to be so fine in order to get those teeth to mesh properly.
Awesome. Yeah. Jumping into the shooter now, it's so quiet, you know, even though you guys have like all 3D printing components. Talk to me about how you're able to do that and reduce like friction and vibration and noise everywhere.
So one of the ways we do that is just by using the GoBuilda hex bearings. They're just very nice, especially when they have a well tolerance press fit into the plastic components. Sometimes those bearings will actually wiggle loose in other teams' launchers and things like that I've heard of. But being within the 3D printed parts, they're kind of constantly being pulled together by the 3D printed components, which cuts down on just wobbling and things like that over time.
Yeah. And are you guys using heat set inserts for like joining all these 3D printed plates together, or is it just straight threads or nuts, or how are you doing that?
Heat set inserts are used everywhere on the robot. They're essentially our main way that we connect components together. So anything from our launcher up here, we've got an M4 screw going into heat set insert, as well as most components on our drivetrain, things like that. We've got a core that's mounted completely with heat set inserts. And if we need something a little bit beefier, we'll opt for putting a standoff behind the part. So instead of printing a printed standoff and doing heat set inserts on either side, we'll just go for a straight aluminum or steel standoff.
For sure. All right, let's jump into the shooter now specifically. I want to start over here with the weights. What are these weights that you guys have over here? They're pretty unique, I'd say.
So we actually found those on Amazon because their mass is concentrated towards the exterior of the wheel, which means for less weight, you can actually get the same rotational inertia as the GoBuilda wheels. So for those, we've actually made a custom clamp that clamps them down to the GoBuilda wheel. And it just gives you really, really high rotational inertia while keeping weight down pretty low.
Awesome. Now talking about the counter roller over here, craziest counter roller I've seen this season. Walk me through the design and how you guys settled on that.
That was originally just GoBuilda, their rollers. They're small, I believe 8mm rollers. but one issue with that was since they're straight, they have very low contact with the ball, and since we only have a single stage of counter roller, it's very challenging to get as much contact and effectiveness as we can on that. So we opted for contouring the counter roller directly around the artifact.
I see.
That's increased the surface area an incredible amount, as well as using the TPU Air filament to get some extra grip.
So how thick is that counter roller, like the TPU component itself?
The TPU component's rather thin in the center. It's only about 2 to 3 millimeters right on the center there, and then it obviously widens out towards the outer sections.
Awesome. Yeah, but is it like solid, or like is it like, are you putting it onto a shaft? What is that like? What is that wall thickness for that part?
Yeah, so for the density of it, that's actually adjustable by the print setting. So it's solid right now, and anytime you print parts in this material, they're actually solid. But how you change essentially the infill is actually by nozzle temperature.
Oh, wow.
So it adjusts the durometer of the filament based off how hot the nozzle is, how much the chemicals inside will actually boil up in foam.
That's crazy. That's so awesome. Talking a little bit about software now, you guys have been showing like the robot moving very smoothly throughout the whole interview, and that's because you guys have a lot of manual control. Do I understand that correctly? So walk me through what's going on there.
Yeah, so actually, as we learned, our very first robot was just a very basic, design sprint, and we didn't have a lot of time for a lot of automation. So as the auxiliary driver, I learned how to essentially manipulate the servos in a launch sequence relatively reliably in a pretty controlled fashion. And then as we continued to develop that robot, and we had 2 other robots as we went on, we decided to keep most of the servo control as manual, since my launch sequence was that consistent and reliable. It also allowed us to stop launching mid-launch should we get pushed out of the launch zone or something should happen like that. And it allows us to also single fire relatively easily as well, just in case we want to make sure they go in the correct order or things like that.
For sure. So is your turret also manually controlled, or do you have an override on that? How does that work?
So our turret, we do have several settings for it. I use every single button on the PS5 controller we have. We do have a manual control for it, so I can just manually adjust it with the left analog stick here.
Oh, nice.
But we also have, should I switch, I have 4 different tracking modes of different hybrids and odometry and limelight tracking, which changes the color of our controller. And that allows us to fully automate our turret as well. Should we rotate the robot, it will follow that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so cool. And also talking about driver communication, you guys said you were using all of the buttons on both controllers. So how do you guys talk to each other and make sure you're fully synced up?
So one of the ways we do that is by using the rumble built into the controllers. PS5 controllers have a built-in rumble, and you can access it relatively easily in the code. So to do that, we just have a specific button on the drivetrain driver that when it is ready to shoot, the driver presses the button, which vibrates my controller, the auxiliary driver, so I know, it's time to shoot. Immediately, I can start my launch sequence, and when I push the trigger up inside the robot, which is the end of our launch sequence, that vibrates his controller, letting him know, it's time to move on to the next part of the match, go get artifacts, go wherever the driver coach tells us to go, etc.
Yeah, I think that's so fascinating. I feel like a lot of teams may do it one way, right? Where the drivetrain driver, the primary driver, tells the secondary driver when to shoot, but not many teams go the other way around too, right? To close that loop. So I think you guys have really done something very clever and innovative there, and it's clearly working out for you guys. Team Calamari, thank you guys so much for this interview. You guys have been absolutely fantastic this season. I can't wait to see how the rest of the championship goes. Reporting for Fun Robotics Network, I'm Abhas, and this is Team 10084 Calamari. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to stay up to date on future fun videos. Kettering University's cutting-edge programs and their experiential co-op model seamlessly blend the professional and academic worlds, offering hands-on, feature-focused learning that empowers students to pursue new ideas and inspires other institutions to follow their lead. Don't just be ahead of the curve, create the curve. Get more information at kettering.edu/first. DECODE Robotics is inspiring teams to build better robots with their new array of FTC team options. Check out their updated bevel gears and Maverick hex shaft motors, planetary gearbox options, and 6mm hex components and shafts for extreme power transmission. Go to studicode.com/robots to learn more and apply for discounts.